Senators, when the business of this Senate was suspended for lunch, Senator the Honorable Maxine Seymour had just completed her contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Vice President, I am always thankful to Almighty God for His blessings. I know that it is only by His grace and blessings that I am able to stand in this honored place to speak on behalf of the people of this great country. I am always reminded to thank the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, for the opportunity to serve as one of his New Day government honorable senators. Mr. Vice President, with your leave, I wish to preface my remarks by extending sincere condolences to the family of 24-year-old Carissa Culmer, especially to the toddler she left behind. Mr. Vice President, I wish in her absence to thank Madam Vice President for all that she did to share herself and her family with Carissa, ensuring that she experienced true love. Mr. Vice President, I also wish to thank Madam President for inviting Carissa here to the Senate, where we all had the opportunity to spend a few quality moments learning why we must act and act now from her boldness to tell her story. We must all acknowledge that gender-based violence and the abuse of women, as well as violence and abuse against children, are both major problems in our country. And Mr. Vice President, I am delighted to say how proud I am of the firm stance Madam President have publicly taken to summons the consciousness of all Bahamians, and particularly all parliamentarians, urging all and sundry to swiftly cultivate a culture of zero tolerance legislation and policies to combat all forms of gender-based violence and abuse. Mr. Vice President, rest assured that this honorable senator and I can say, whilst I am on my feet, every senator in this honorable place fully supports Madam President, and I am ready to stand with her, with all women and children in this regard. Mr. Vice President, as a young boy, I would always hear the elders say that God works in mysterious ways. So on August 19, 2021, when former Prime Minister, you remember that day, hey, Mr. Nordabaco. So on August 19, 2021, when former Prime Minister announced September 16, 2021 as the election day, a full 8 months before the general election was constitutionally due, I was confident that Bahamians throughout the nation were ready for change and to see the mysterious works of God overflow through our Bahama land. Who would have thought, Mr. Vice President, that Bahamians would be reaping the benefits of their September 16 decision so quickly? A few weeks following September 16 and shortly after the formation of the brave Davis and I. Chester Cooper New Day administration, the position known as competent authority would be deleted like a bad word and becoming nothing more than a bad memory of the past. The curfew that created anxiety for most were immediately relaxed, and young men selling coconuts to support their family or going to the public pump for a gallon or two of water were no longer fearful of being locked up. Who would have thought that VAT, would have been reduced to 10% and government revenue increased while offering free COVID testing and masks? Who would have thought that it would only have required the New Day government days to fully open the economy, allowing businesses to fully operate and begin the process of rising from the ashes, allowing thousands of hardworking Bahamians to return to work, now finally able to live a life of dignity while properly managing and living with the coronavirus. Mr. Vice President, who would have thought that nurses and healthcare workers would have already been paid their monies owed for keeping our people safe and healthy during the dreaded pandemic? Who could imagine that our little darlings would be reporting to their learning institution safely 5 days per week, Monday to Friday, learning face to face with their hard-working teachers? Who would have thought that after less than 6 months under this New Day administration, our airports, harbors, hotels, restaurants, and attractions would be buzzing with tourists? Yes, we know that tourism numbers have not reached pre-COVID-19 levels, but we are moving in the upward direction. Mr. Vice President, when you combine the significant improvement made to the legal structure of BAMSI and the commendable work that BAMSI's recently appointed chairman and president are doing with their teams, as well as the passing of the merchant shipping bill, which will open new opportunities for Bahamians, you can see the blueprint for change coming to life, with emphasis being placed on the blue and green economies. Indeed, things are moving in the right direction. Mr. Vice President, Grand Bahama is also experiencing positive benefits of this New Day administration. Just 2 weeks ago, the University of the Bahamas successfully acquired the Kipling building for the relocation of the University of the Bahamas. After suffering catastrophic damages during Hurricane Dorian, and no word on the fate of that northern campus by the former administration, today the people of Grand Bahama welcomes this news and anticipate a real economic spin-off from this game-changing venture. Mr. Vice President, downtown Freeport is already in the process of receiving major economic injections as AML has undertaken a major project to transform the old Winn-Dixie market into a state-of-the-art super fresh market food store, while Doctors Hospital, flagship facility Freeport, and the 8 Mile Rock specialty facilities are both progressing on schedule. Mr. Vice President, I am pleased to let you know that the ministry responsible for aviation has purchased the generators for the Grand Bahama Airport, and they will be installed in short order. The elevators for the control tower have also been purchased, and once installed, it will bring much needed relief to the air traffic controllers who were required to walk all those many stairs of flight daily since Hurricane Dorian. Mr. Vice President, while government completes its consultative process to determine the best plans for what is expected to be a new world-class Grand Bahama International Airport, Cabinet has approved funding for provisional repairs and upgrades to the existing facilities, including the control tower. Mr. Vice President, Grand Bahama will soon boast of its second major shipping harbor. Carnival Cruise Port Development has announced that they will be breaking grounds in May of this year for its Grand Port in East Grand Bahama, a project that was originally brought to Grand Bahama by former Prime Minister, the Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie, in the beginning of 2017. Mr. Vice President, the government complex located in 8 Mile Rock and the junior high school located in Holmes Rock that was started under the last Progressive Liberal Party administration and were well on the way, but stalled under the former administration for whatever reason, are both now being completed and are both scheduled to open this year. Both projects will bring positive transformation to the West Grand Bahama communities. Mr. Vice President, before I move on and spend a minute or two on the topic of relief, let me just remind you that all and more that I have addressed thus far have all taken place in less than 6 months. Mr. Vice President, Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, while serving as opposition leader on the campaign, promised the people of Grand Bahama and Albacore relief. The government's priority to directing funding towards real transformative relief was also carefully outlined in the Davis-Cooper Blueprint for Change. And today it is coming to life. You've heard the Member of Parliament for West Grand Bahama and Bimini and Minister for Social Services and Urban Development, the Honorable Obadiah Wilchcombe, announced plans in the other place to engage a very aggressive 2,500 house repair exercise between Grand Bahama and Albacore under the Urban Renewal Small Home Repair Program. 2,500 homes. Mr. Vice President, as the Deputy Director for Urban Renewal with responsibilities for the Northern Bahamas, including the surrounding keys, I have had the opportunity to tour and assess Grand Bahama from West End to Sweetens Key, inclusive of Queens Cove, and from Crown Haven, Albacore, to Spring City in the south. And I can tell you, Mr. Vice President, that there is a serious need for immediate help and relief. Based on the information we have been receiving and gathering, I can say that the people of Grand Bahama, Albacore, and the surrounding keys must thank God for the NGOs. They have helped tremendously with repairing hundreds of roofs and constructing many homes. You know, whilst in Albacore, I met a young lady, Miss Moss. She done this town. She is well in her 70s. And, you know, I met her just to tell you what we are faced with. I met her sitting on her porch and So I stopped and talked with her. And I said, boy, your house look nice. So she said, go look inside through the window. So when I went inside, it was basically just the four walls, no bathroom facilities, no studying out, no nothing. So she said that the NGOs built that for her, but now she needs help to get from them. And as we traverse through the communities, we found that situation almost in every community multiplied. And so you get down in Spring City, you see the houses, beautiful roofs. When you go to the door and you knock on the doors, you look inside. The people are in need of serious help. And so we are going to do what we need to do for the people of Grand Bahama and Abaco. And so get ready for that. Additionally, to the many homes that are still in need of roof work and the hundreds of families, Mr. Vice President, living in homes where the interiors of their home is not completed, such as, like I said earlier, bathrooms, no or incomplete electrical wiring, no or incomplete sheetrock work, no or incomplete ceilings, no or incomplete kitchen cupboards, no or just many houses with persons living with disability with no wheelchair ramp. And so the list goes on and on for help and relief that is needed. Mr. Vice President, the relief project is forecast to engage around 130 to 150 small contractors and over 600 laborers. Mr. Vice President, the project is expected to begin within the next 2 weeks, and we have to begin within the next 2 weeks because the government is insisting that we get families in dried house, that's house with completed roof, and house that are prepared on the inside before the upcoming hurricane season, or at least before we get into the heart of the upcoming hurricane season. Unfortunately, Mr. Vice President, and it was unbelievable to discover that the former administration did not build one single home for a family following Hurricane Dorian. Let me just talk a little bit about housing. Let me report, Mr. Vice President, that the Ministry of Housing is undertaking an aggressive program to provide houses and housing for persons living in Grand Bahama and Abaco. 30 houses in West Heights will be under construction shortly. 8 in Pine Forest subdivision, all in West Grand Bahama. And the government is in the process of acquiring land from the Port Authority for 100 lots to construct an extra 100 homes in Central Freeport. The government has scheduled an open house fair within the next 2 weeks, and plans will be announced for additional fairs for potential homeowners. In Abaco, we have signed 30 contracts for houses already and getting ready to sign 30 more with our small contractors. Currently, we're putting infrastructure for 38 houses in 2 different areas of Abaco. All of this is scheduled to begin by June. And we're talking about areas in Central Pines as well as Spring City. Mr. Vice President, you see, this is what is happening. These are the reality, the facts of what is happening over the last 6 months. Mr. Vice President, in closing, I leave those who recently governed the country and committed millions to the rich for managing food distribution and collecting our tax, while far too many went to bed hungry and families had to live in cars, to Prime Minister Davis and the Court of Public Opinion for Justice. I wish to congratulate this New Day government for its commitment to the principles of accountability and transparency, as well as for its commitment to good governance and putting the Bahamian people first. This is demonstrated in the government's reinstatement of promotion and raises owed to public servants, as well as the increase for cost of living adjustments to the pension of retired public servants. Mr. Vice President, after witnessing the positive turnaround of this country by this New Day government, and to see what this government was able to deliver for the Bahamian people in the midst of these adverse set of circumstances, I cannot wait to see what will happen when Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis and his government produce their very own budget. May God continue to bless us all, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
As many The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ruben Raming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. This has been a very interesting session from the lower house to the upper house. And reviewing it, it seems as if more so than informing the people that it's turning out to be a 6-month makeover of the PLP. There's a term that they use, say lipstick on a pig. I would not do that. I'll just say lipstick on a body. And it perplexed me at all the sayings and going-ons, and things start to look like conch salad. So you know what I'm going to do? First of all, I'm going to focus on something positive. You know, today is my Aunt Duchess' birthday. Thank you. See, now you all, see, that's friendly. Mr. Pistol, that's my Aunt Duchess. That means, all right, not on her birthday. Aunt Duchess is 75.
Oh, very good.
And if you look at my Aunt Duchess, I do it all, you say 6'6". I think her, my mom, my Aunt Princess, my Aunt Dor, my Black Pearl, and Anne. Well, you know, Auntie Linda's supposed to be the baby. That side of the Butler family just have some very, very good genes. And on Sunday, we're going to be celebrating with my Aunt Duchess, as we do traditionally with the family, because they're from the Church of God of Prophecy. On the main tabernacle on East Street, we'll be celebrating with her at that time. You got to give thanks and you got to give praise. It causes me to reflect on so many persons that are being so close to us. In life, we must do our best to value and appreciate people and not become the persons who do things posthumously. It's okay when you miss somebody and 20 years later, but nothing is better than when you could appreciate somebody to their face when they can consume it, they can digest it, they can appreciate it, and you have the benefit of their response. So, Duchess, I love you very much. This debate had taken some rather unique turns. Much has been said about it in that regard. I had taken some notes on some things that had been stated on issues that had been of grave concern to the Bahamian people. And some of them is, example, the issue of this loan that has just transpired, that is hailed as a slam dunk. I don't think it's really that complicated. For most of us who don't quite understand what is going on, it's just really straightforward. The repo loan versus the international bond approach structure that we tend to take over the past historical lifestyle of the government of the Bahamas. Normally, when we borrow as a nation, we borrow against what we call our sovereign credit rating. And that attracts a certain level of interest based upon the level of the sovereign credit rating. And it's quite frankly that even if you have bad credit and you're able to come up with a cash secure loan, you can negotiate better terms. Because the risk factor, and the whole point of the sovereign credit rating is for the international bodies to be able to gauge what kind of risk is associated with lending any country, any nation money. So if you come up, and I have done this before, that's how in my life, I realize how much money is going to my pocket. I say, no man, I got to start using the bank money, but I stop this. And I put my savings on fixed, and when I'm ready, I borrow against that to get, but only because the banks are so lousy with their interest, and the interest is so low, it got to the point that even that didn't become too attractive, because what you're attracting on the fixed deposit really is virtually nothing. But I use that to leapfrog a lot of things. But then there is the aesthetic part of it. It still keeps your books looking good. That money's still sitting on fixed. And then you do get a better interest rate on your loan. And if things become a little tight, you just break your fix and wipe the debt out. So in essence, this whole issue going on with this loan thing is really, in short, nothing from nothing, leave nothing, except from the fact that in doing so, it could allow, and this is important even in financing, it could allow the country to buy time for adjustment while keeping itself stable, do some things with somebody else's money instead of theirs. Or it could also allow for good optics. That's very important as well. But for I just gave two things, and you're saying is more than good optics. Isn't two more than one? But in anything in terms, and I said as to me, don't be too anxious, man. In financing, and our Attorney General is one of the best financial attorneys that has been esteemed for a long time. It is also about optics, how your books look. Quite frankly, it ain't about how much you got, it's how your books, you can present your books, present your arguments, and lay out your case. So don't diminish optics. That's just how it is. Quite frankly, the Americans look very attractive, but they're totally indebted to China, and they're wasting money all across the place, costing everybody to get into this global inflation. But America looks great. Versus 2.4% on something that is already yours. So let's not get to that. But the thing about it, what makes it so interesting, that we having to resort to that, which neither is here nor there for me in that regard. But with the confusion that seems to still be out there as related to this loan, and persons trying to understand what they call that 12% asset reduction and all that stuff, which the AG has claimed ain't neither here nor there. It'll be very simple in interest of transparency just to lay the document on the table so that it could be reviewed if it had not been already, and that will end that.
The chair recognizes Senator Ryan Binder.
Thank you.
You
Thank you.
don't lay that.
So,
Don't lay that. That's a financial document.
no. So the Ministry of Finance has, if you so desire, authorized me to table documents for the loan. Now they have them on electronic form. So I think instead of, how thick these things can be, instead of printing them and tabling them here, I could happily send them to the staff, and they can make them available as if they were tabled, if that is acceptable.
No, that's good.
No.
The reason why that is important to me is because sometimes I think we waste our energies about nothing. I think it's just a different approach. Like I said, I use it in my life. I stopped using it after I done get my edge, got my equipments and everything else. And, I done use the bank money for a change. And then I got to a point saying, all these loans I'm going to do, I said, listen, take these fixed, wipe these off, and leave me with whatever I got. So in a sense, it's like using the man. Business banks like to do business to you, not with you. So in a sense, that is that. But in the interest of all this hullabaloo, I agree with that. Just go ahead. There's so much substantive things. One of the most substantive thing about that is probably would be how we probably got to this point in the first place dealing with this. It is interesting, and I stand to be corrected because I'm going with my history and my knowledge, that the first time, and let me go back to what I'm saying, the initial processes of borrowing was using a bond against our sovereign credit rating. I remember when we was up to BBB and all those other different type things up there, and we naturally could have attracted lower interest rates. And that was the traditional approach. But it was, for the first time, I think, in my living history, that the Bahamians would have heard the statement called junk status was under the PLP administration. It was unfortunate that during that time, which had not had the impact of a global meltdown as a result of COVID or a countrywide catastrophic event as Dorian, that during the previous PLP administration, year after year, we saw the sovereign rating going down, down, down. I recall in this place, Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder made the remarks, though on his, though seated, that we introduced the highest VAT on the backs of the Bahamian people. During the time that under the previous PLP administration, when each year our sovereign rating kept going down, 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 to the point that for the first time we heard the word drunk status, which brought us to the point that requires such creative avenues to finance our country, even now as we try to lift ourselves out of the doldrum of COVID, that while we try to lift ourselves out of the doldrum of COVID, that the fact of the downgrades to junk status happened even though the PLP, who the truth be told, is the administration that had implemented the highest rate of VAT on the Bahamian people. Because not only are they the creator of it, the 7.5% still far exceeded whatever addition that would have been added to the Bahamian people in that regard. The truth is, and I have no problem with the truth, our addition was 65% or so of what they had put on. The thing what I need us to appreciate is we had the most successful launch of VAT under the PLP administration, and buildings were actually generated tremendous money, and that still did not held our sovereign rating of our country intact. We still went down to junk status under that administration. Judge it for yourself. They had the wheel. It happened. They got the influx of the additional cash. We added 65% onto it with a lot of exemptions because the original VAT, about 65%, right? 60%. And the exemptions, with many exemptions that was also thrown in, and a lot of additional doors open for exemptions that was thrown in. And with that, and including Dorian, which hit two of our major engines, Grand Bahama and Freeport, and also with the shock of COVID, we did not, I don't recall the downgrade until one happened. It's so funny here. It happened as soon as y'all come in, but it happened under our administration. The last downgrade, it was announced, I think, around the 17th or so of September. You know, did you have a hurricane? Listen very carefully. If you want to count hurricanes, I only spoke of catastrophic events, Dorian and COVID. Don't forget we had to pull our people from the southern ends of the islands and evacuate when we got those hits. So we're not talking about traditional hurricanes, man. You're talking about traditional. I'm talking about catastrophic things. I'm a straightforward fair man. You see what I'm saying? All right. And even still, as with yourselves, as with us with Dorian, such as with NEMA in the United States, recovery from hurricanes takes years and sometimes decades. So no matter what the hype is from PLP or F&M, it is not a simple thing to rebound from catastrophic loss and continue to try and grow your economy. But when you have something as historic as Dorian, which massacred two of our major economies, that's a very serious thing. But in the midst of all of that, nonetheless, under the previous F&M administration, things were kept sufficiently stable. Yes, we borrowed. Now we're to the point where the PLP have to deal with, you want to speak for me? The PLP have to now deal with the very high debt to GDP ratio, which will cause for some level of creativity and figure whatever else out the same way we had to. The PLP, although they have not yet presented their evidence of some say billions, some haven't all millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that was left for them, we clearly had to deal with the similar thing coming into with our administration. And over again, I heard the former Minister of Finance constantly repeating to people, bring these bills in so we could pay these debts. Because you know what we realized? That a lot of those debts was owed to Bahamian contractors and so on and so forth. And by dodging those debts, you may make your books look good, but guess what you're hurting? Your economy. Because not every company has the ability to wait for 4 or 5 years to get a $200,000 payment that is owed from the government or a $5 million payment that is owed to government. So it's important to be able to pay off those debts. But it's interesting that the struggle that we have and the same issues that is being pointed to about the high rate of interest that we would have, that is now attracted to our borrowing is because we are still at junk status. And that junk status began under Philip Brave Davis and Perry Gladstone Christie. No, under Ingram, is the triple B. It was triple B. Under Ingram is triple B. I remember that off the top of my head. Ingram had, y'all came in with a triple B rate. I know that off the top of my head, just by hearing you. And so when we look at that, despite the imposition of the VAT and the full injection of all that monies into the economy, we find a lot of things. And I will attest, as it relates to another matter that I've been hearing in the House, I'm going to get to that in a second. Let's continue on, seeing we're talking about VAT and the bread basket. The Honorable Attorney General also mentioned a good point, and I went back to listen to it very, very carefully. And in part, he says, if he wanted to help, meaning the poor, the people who are impacted by the bread basket items, that we should have exempted and not zero-rated the bread basket items. I smile at that because it's very simple without getting into much of it. If you had such a great idea to ensure that the people get what was intended to them and cut out the persons whom you assume was benefiting from what they should have gotten, you should have kept the bread basket items and do exactly what you just said.
Clarification, Mr. Vice President.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pindo.
We went through this before with the supplemental budget.
Yeah.
And we said, and I think it was accepted, that the PLP has a fundamental difference in how we administer value-added tax than the F&M, right?
Yeah.
Our fundamental difference is that we would have fewer exemptions, fewer zero ratings, we would have it more standard across the board at a lower rate, which the IMF has concluded is the proper way to administer it, and your collection percentage is much higher. It's a fundamental difference. Your theory of VAT administration is you have a higher rate and more exemptions and more zero rating. My only point was, if you were going to adopt your philosophy of VAT, not ours, but your philosophy of VAT, then you really should have exempted the items and not zero rated them, because you put the country in a much worse fiscal position by awarding refunds to really the richest of the rich and the most successful businesses in the country. That was my point. Not that we were adopting multiple rate scales or anything to that effect. We have a fundamental difference in the administration of that, and that's fine. We can have that.
Two fundamental things I wanted to make clear. First of all, the recommendation that was given by the Honorable Attorney General, what he acknowledged, that if we wanted to, we could have, in order to accomplish our intent of zero rating or accommodating the poor through VAT, his recommendation was, instead of zero rating, exempt. My point is very simple. It shows that if the PLP wanted to adopt that model, if only to keep the bread basket item in a sanctified place for the poor, a hollow place for the poor, that idea would have worked and could have been applied. But I accept the fact that they simply just don't want to, because it's not their policy position. I have no argument with it. I accept the reality. All right? And so it's simply that. They just simply did not want to do it. And as it relates to the zero rating and the persons paying, quite frankly, I need to ask the question, does businesses pay VAT? You see? See, no. In this context, the VAT is generated from the consumer.
That's right.
It's a consumption tax. So if the man come to your tire shop to get his tire fixed and you charge him VAT, and over, $100,000 threshold or whatever else, you pay the, so in other words, you as a businessman is a tax collector. So you're a tax collector. Now, and you send that back to the government, and in some instances, whereas the government, you do business with the government with duties and other different things, in some instances, you can be able to swap the credit, saying, I got $200,000 of duty for you, but I collected $200,000 in VAT. You know, that stuff like that could actually be done. But to say that that allows for the rich to benefit of the back of the poor, that don't add up. Because even if Bahama buy bread, and Bahama don't sell bread, even though you may see it on a place with butter, the bread is built into the cost of the meal. And they pay tax, they pay VAT on the cost of the meal in which that bread is made up a part of.
But it's not a business expense, it's a consumer expense.
No, but see, my concern about this, let me tell you something, I'm not necessarily concerned too much about right or wrong, and I'd be concerned about truth. And for me, it's very simple. If I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong, and ain't no man could condemn me, because ain't no man better. Some may be worse, but ain't no one better than me. You understand? Because you be honest and you move on. You be honest and you move on. What they could do? I mean, what could you do? So let's just be straightforward and let's throw away all this centrifuge and everything else and just be straight up, because why? There are different levels of persons who are listening to us. And I dare to say there are some who are of the high economic ilk looking at and saying, look at these fellas spinning. Or there are some who are on the low end chewing it up because they have faith and confidence in the ilk that we're supposed to possess around this table. We are called honorable. So when we present these things, we need to be able to ensure that we present them in a way that even the small man clearly understand. I'm sure that in every administration, just like in everybody's life, you could find dirt if you dig for it. You ain't got to make it up. You see what I'm saying? Get the evidence, put it together, and bring it. Another thing that stood out and was also raised in the Senate was the salary that was attributed to this ongoing investigation as it relates to the food program. And I saw how prime ministers, other persons in the lower house, and even in this house, lamenting what they call this $7,500 a week salary, $1,750 a week salary. That $1,750 a week salary that was paid to a professional who had to organize something that had not been organized before, bring it all together, do whatever else. However else, that's fine. Because if any of us have gotten it, we won't complain. So let's just talk generally about this. The thing about the point of it. My thing about this is, my point on this is very, very simple, you know. How would you feel if I could stand here today and I could prove to you in the House and this Senate that Philip Brave Davis himself paid a foreigner not $1,750 a week, $741 a day. How would you feel if I show you that Philip Brave Davis paid not a Bahamian $1,750 a day, but a foreigner $1,741, and this not including certain $50,000 worth of perks, you know, a day. And he did it not once, he did it not twice, he did it 3 times. In an industry where the top paying Bahamian makes less than $10,000 a month.
Objection, unless he is prepared to, sir, if he is prepared, unless he is prepared to table the document, it's just an accusation. So on the point of order.
The chair recognizes Senator Rule. What is your point of order?
Yeah, point of order is he's making an accusation that he's not prepared to table it. Unless he's prepared to bring evidence as what he says, then it should not be on the record of this Senate.
Honored Senator Vice President, I am not obliged to answer the senator's reaction or question in any which way because, first of all, he can't make me answer something that he refused to disown or deny. Now, is he denying that what I am saying, or is he saying what I'm saying is untrue, or this is just his curiosity for me to do his homework? Unless he's prepared to stand up and say what I'm saying is untrue.
Senator Rule, can you please clarify? Are you asking him to support his statement with evidence?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
No, Senator, he's not required to make a statement on the truth or otherwise of your statement. He's asking you to provide proof or evidence to your claim.
He made a statement, a claim,
Let me show you.
Senator Ryming, are you prepared to provide evidence to your claim?
Clearly, according to the rules, good Vice President.
Please show me in the rule. Which rule are you referring to?
I would say
we all have the rule book. Which rule are you referring to? Which rule are you referring to, Senator?
The parliamentary procedures, because I have myself consulted on him with that as it relates to the parliamentary procedures in this House. You have that privilege, and I'm not going to deny my privilege because of that. First of all, if he's not prepared to say that he is denying what I'm saying, I have no problem proving it, but you need to stop just jumping up and you're preparing to say what Mr. Raming's saying I believe is untrue, and he need to prove it. Say that, and I would then answer that. But he's not denying it. See, we keep our discourse. Anybody could be jumping up and down, saying anything, but not exposing their own conviction. Is it
Mr.
true
Mr. Vice President? Unless he is prepared to bring evidence based on what he's saying, then he should not say it.
I am prepared to bring evidence once you are prepared to stand up, look me in the face, and say that you deny what I say.
No, so anyone can just say whatever?
If you deny, I'm prepared to present.
Okay, senators, I'm going to make a ruling on this.
Deny, and I will bring the evidence.
The senator has requested that you provide evidence or support to the statement you are making. Are you prepared to table the document?
All right. Here it is, Mr. Vice President.
Yes, sir.
You something. The clerk that I was there, why don't you ask him his opinion if the member has to actually
Senator,
deny what I'm saying? You can't just jump up and down and whatever you say. No. If it's an accusation, you have a problem with it. You need to stand and say that you are saying that I am wrong, or I am misleading, or the fact that it is untrue, and I must prove it. Yes, listen to the clock. He's been here for 40 years. He's been here for 40 years.
So what are you doing?
I lean on experience.
Exactly.
I need to learn to pay attention to your rules.
Mr. Vice President.
I'm not accusing.
Mr. Vice President, I stand up on another point of order.
And the same privilege was denied when Senator Pistock on many occasions did the exact same thing. But you know what I'm going to do?
I stand on a point of order.
Sorry, Senator
table my document.
Senator Pickstock.
Just for a point of clarification, is Senator Raming saying or accusing the now Prime Minister in his private capacity or his official capacity? Because that's very important. And so I just need clarification.
His private life has nothing to do with government.
So I just need Senator Raming to clarify that.
Obviously speaking of his government as a minister or something.
I said Prime Minister. Now, here it is, and I will table this to make this clear, and I'll elucidate this for you now that we're going down the road. But we need to learn to ensure that if we're going to say something, deny it or want to drop it. The Minister of Public Works, former Minister of Public Works, Desmond Bannister. Doesn't matter, gosh or not, he was there. Presented and outlined for us the compensation for the executives of Power Secure. Former BPL CEO, Ms. Pamela Hill, was paid a salary when you add in the $25,000 a month plus the $6,000 received each month for housing benefit, plus the initial $8,000, plus also the $3,833 paid to her. Her monthly fee was $34,833 for that executive.
I stand on another point of order. What's being, I beg your pardon, Mr. Vice President, what is being tabled?
I'm not aware of any document. So let me get this right now. You could just stand up and ask me what's being tabled.
I stand on a point.
Clarification of what is being tabled.
That's what I said.
Senator Raming, could you just be clear in the document you are referring to? And
I have the floor.
Senator Pickstock, have a seat.
Yeah.
Please elucidate on what you are tabling.
Thank you. I'm tabling a Tribune article that was written
Tabling a document, you will have the benefit of reading it.
by Ms. Rush. Yes, and it's also documented in the Hansard, which takes a bit more time to collect because, as you know, how things go around here. We find it, and also, let me finish. All right. I stopped using training wheels a long time, and if I needed one, I wouldn't use yours. All right. And I myself was also present when this was debated and placed before the lower house in the House of Assembly as well. And I'm adopting this because I heard it. And this report is also accurate. And it could also be found in our Hansard. I'll pull up the date, time, and tape and everything else. And this was not refuted. And it is stated that the former BPL.
I stand on another point of order. We can't.
You have a problem with me stating a fact?
No, it just can't. The House cannot descend in this sort of behavior.
What is your point of
order? My point of order is
Look at the ethics.
The Honorable Mr. Vice President, the Honorable Senator Reuben Raming, he is referring to character or conduct of a person in his official capacity.
Okay, well, I'll rule on that. I'll rule on that.
No.
Senator
No.
Raming, by the rules, section 3120, any senator who desires to refer in debate in the Senate or in any committee to the character or conduct of any person in his official or public capacity shall deliver to the president written prior notice of the proposed reference. The notice shall set out the facts on which such reference will be based and shall be signed by the senator giving it.
Yeah.
The president may, in his discretion, permit the reference. Have you provided such notice beforehand, Senator?
You're right, Mr. Senate Vice President. You're so correct, because I was going to use the same rule against Senator Pistock. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm withdrawing any reference to Philip Bray Davis. You're going to finish for me? Because that's going to honorable, that's going to go into member of the blah, 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 blah. All right? All right? Philip Brave Davis, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis. There's a couple of things in that regard. When you use a man's full name, when you use, and he didn't give me a chance to reach the office, but when you use a man's full name, that is not considered a dishonorable thing. You all right? Yes. 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 So, no, you know the rules, but that same thing applies to Pistock, but that's good. We got it in the open, so now we can ensure that he sticks to his gun. I withdraw the reference made to the Honorable Brave Davis, and I address a matter that concerns Power Secure and BPL. Power Secure and BPL, regardless, it still actually happened. I can show you a couple other things that actually happened. Power Secure and BPL, this lady was paid $34,833 a month. And that did not include her $27,300 in travel costs. That didn't include a $23,637 in relocation costs. And that we also cover the cost of her every 5 days flying back home. And also housing costs here. So when you break that all down over the 5-day work week, she was getting paid $1,741 a day. It's noteworthy that the other executives, the vice presidents of Power Secure, cumulatively, those three persons alone got over $95,000. If you add their perks to it, go over $100,000 easily. And that's on a monthly basis. And it's interesting, and that was a document that was not tabled. Now, it's interesting that they didn't fix the problems or address the problems with BPL, but when we did get a set of qualified Bahamians there, they did a darn good job of addressing the problems with BPL. Is BPL completely whole? No. But while the blackouts were occurring, there were massive generators being put in place and being installed, new equipment for the first time. We saw the resulting work of BPL in terms of the fuel rate dropping within the Commonwealth of Bahamas significantly, not only through the hedging, but also through the efficiency of those equipment. And I want to note again that during that time, the highest Bahamian salary was actually only $10,000 per month. And that's amazing. But to go on so far in terms of saying sweet deals, and we want to look at everybody in terms of their rides and the cars and everything else, apart from every salaries, the MSA stipulated Power Secure was to be paid an annual base management fee of $2 million. Apart from that, it also provided that the payment for Power Secure is of an annual performance compensation fee, which should reach a maximum of 150% of the management fee. And that equates to $3 million. What I'm simply saying is...
The chair recognizes Senator Darren Pickstock.
and this is
What is
again,
your point of order?
my point of order is I am trying to figure out the relevance. We have here what is the relevance, right? We are here. Yes, it is.
It is not
I
in
can
the rules.
what it is. If you look at relevance as in the rules, yeah, Mr. Vice President, right?
Give away things and burners.
Right? What's the relevance?
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable.
You're talking about the worst.
Senator Pickstock.
No, this is completely, we talk about apples and sugar apples. It's so far off base. You had a management arrangement that was approved and entered into by a board of directors of a utility in the country to contract with a third party after a public RFP process to modernize BPL. That's what happened. And that's what happened. In the alternative, what is being criticized by others is you had a single man competent authority without regard to the government structure that existed, without regard to even the independence of a board of directors, to that initiated the payment that is at question here. You had the minister of works doesn't approve contracts for BPL. You know that. This is a board approved process. And in fact, this was a process that was enumerated, and it still is, and it needs to be modernized, and we're working it, but it's still found in the Electricity Act of the Bahamas that is debated and passed through Parliament. There's nothing related to the two.
Great.
And he should withdraw from misleading the Bahamian people.
Oh, reading a statement back?
Sorry, 1 second. We'll deal with this. We'll deal with this point of order.
Listen,
Senator Raming, Senator Raming, before you continue, it has been asked that you withdraw the statement for misleading the Senate that the Prime Minister, in his former capacity as Minister of
Why are you bringing the Prime Minister into something that he's not into? Didn't I just withdraw? And I'm just speaking. Why are you bringing the Honorable Prime Minister into this matter? And I'm just referencing. You just accept the fact that I withdraw the Prime Minister name, and I am speaking as it relates to the matter of this. Have you heard me sense the correction mentioned? The only person now invoking the Prime Minister or the Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Vice
President.
He just recognized me, man. Sit down.
You know, you're invoking it.
It's very clear what is happening here. The Minister of Works does not have the authority, nor is it best practices or any practices for him to issue a contract for the management of Bahamas Power and Light. The board of directors of BPL, after an RFP, after Power Secure was chosen, decided to enter into, on behalf of BPL, the arrangement, and it went so far as it is found in the Electricity Act of the Bahamas, debated and passed through Parliament. That is an entirely different framework than a competent authority of one issuing secret management agreements with another party without disclosing it to anybody and without any type of independent board, any properly constituted governance mechanism to endorse that decision. This is what's being debated here. Nothing more, nothing less. It is a mechanism of how you decide to enter into a contract. One has the protection of a board of directors with fiduciary duties that entered into a contract on behalf of the entity of which it is a board and it is governing, and the other does not. It is a single purpose decision by a single person who is a competent authority in the state of emergency to completely disregard norms and governance that are accepted internationally. That's the difference. And so I ask him to withdraw this on the basis he is misleading the Bahamian people. He is mischaracterizing what happened, and he is trying to attribute it to the current Prime Minister of the Bahamas, who knows better and had the cover of the board of directors of BPL to do what he is alleging.
Mr. Vice President, I would appreciate it if the Honorable Attorney General, Senator Leo Ryan Pinder, would stop imputing and creating a direction for me. I had not mentioned the member, any Minister of Public Works apart from Desmond Bannister. All right? I had distance before I went off here. I made no reference to, now or otherwise, to the Prime Minister after your ruling. I made it clear. So what do I need to retract when you have not found in me saying anything? I had not even mentioned an official. I'm speaking to something that is on record in the Hansard and to a public record.
Paid $700 a day.
Listen,
That's what you said.
the person again established where I have, after the ruling of the chair, and my retraction before I begin going into the meat of this, that I have at any point mentioned any individual in government at all. I did not. No, it's a fact. It doesn't matter how your mind
Senator Ryming, Senator Pinder.
It's still a fact.
Senator Ryming, Senator Pinder, I'll make my ruling. I will allow you the opportunity to clearly restate your position, so it's clear that there's no reference to any public official, in particular the current Prime Minister.
Listen,
I'll allow you to restate.
I repeat again that I am reading a document as it relates to power secure and their compensation as associated with BPL. Period. I don't need to repeat what I said to you, Mr. President, before. The only one who imputing the names is that. But at the end of the day, we've seen that on record in this country that obviously some persons are very, very qualified to not only get $1,750 a month, they can get, there are persons who are actually, I don't justify making any imputation, I'm just showing it, I'm just presenting you information, that there have been historically persons of foreign descent who had gotten $1,741, including additional perks. See, when we speak, Mr. Vice President, about cost overruns, and that has been historic. Our governments in this country, historically, almost from time immemorial, has been big wasters. I think all of us will admit to it. It seems as if cost overruns is just an acceptable thing sometimes. And it should be frustrating to every Bahamian that over the years, repeatedly, every single government, if they tell you something costs $1 million, what can happen? It can be $10 million. And I'm saying this, we as Bahamian people can't be that naive. That after 50 years, we can't get it right to give an estimate that at least fall within a reasonable ballpark. Everything from roads to stadiums to this. And there are sometimes exogenous issues, it's external issues that impact things. We understand it. The price of oil may shoot up, or this may do. But we can't keep getting it wrong as a nation. So much so with our quotes. We go build a school. It's going to cost more money than predicted.
The chair recognizes Senator Pickstock.
Mr. Vice President, I don't want to just keep I don't want to getting up. I don't want to belabor the point here, right? But the Honorable Senator Ruben Raming stood up and he said clearly that he wanted to put something on the record, right? What he is attempting to put on the record, and he can clarify me if I'm wrong, is a newspaper article, right? And so I just want to be very clear. What the rules say about putting things like that or a document like that on the record. If you go to section 31(1) of the rules, every senator desiring to speak shall rise and address the chair. A senator may read extracts from books, journals, etc., and documents, and may refresh his memory from notes. But he shall not quote from newspapers unless he adopts such quotation as his own words, and such are relevant to the business. Under the debate, senators, as a general rule, shall not do this.
Thank you.
So please,
Senator Raming, in reference
Mr.
to the point of order, can you clearly state if what you are referring to or reading is a newspaper article, and if such, are you adopting it as your own
Do you want
words?
me to have to repeat that again? I said it was a newspaper article. I said I was going to adopt it. I mean, if there's a herring issue, I mean, I think seldom people speak louder than I can. And I want to continue on for that same reading that Senator Pistorius did.
So just to clarify for the Senate, he's adopted the paper as his own,
and I will
the
be
words as his
tabling it.
own. Yes.
When I'm through, which is reasonable.
Yes.
There have been many times
Point of order.
senators would have left this place and sent in their newspaper article with the same Senator Pistorius. You remember the agriculture, and you presented it on behalf of another person with no qualms. But I'm glad we're tightening up on the rule. I'm glad I'm the sacrificial lamb for the rule, because you will get no quarters as relate to the rule no more. Because courtesy seems to not be appreciated by yourself. Let me also, Mr. Vice President, remind Senator Pistorius through the same rules that continue on that the senators, as a general rule, should not read their speech. I have not seen a day yet that he's taken his eye off a speech that has been presented and written to him.
Mr. Vice President,
but nonetheless, no, I'm talking about
Mr. Vice President.
A bit, man, come on, man. Be honest. Be honest. We all here, we see it.
The honorable senator
No. Am I
is
reading?
calling in to question my character and all of these other things, right? But the point is,
let's not
Mr. Vice President,
Sorry, I can't hear Senator Pistorius.
we are coming to this place to do the business and the work of the people.
Oh, wow.
If I take the opportunity to prepare, then so be it. So that's why I'm always on point, and certain people aren't.
Thank you, Senator.
Listen, let me read the rule to Senator Pistorius, who takes the time to prepare. Regardless of how prepared you are, the Senate rules say a senator, as a general rule, shall not read their speech. Period. You're supposed to know who you're representing across the board. And this will be tabled. While I'm at it, and the senator does speak about something for the journal, something, I'm going to look at something from a journal. Because we're talking about cost overruns. I think no decent-minded Bahamian or leader of our society would be happy with cost overrun. I don't care who party it is. And some of them are blatant. This is a budget, brother. And part of the issue you all raised in the budget is the cost overrun, say the food program and all these other things. Come on, you know that you raised it yourself. Senator Pistorius, all right, so come on. At some point, we all as gentlemen need to find our honorable dignity at times. And remember that there is a common rule. Yes, but you ain't moved it yet. So we have cost overruns, and we also have abuses. We also have abuses that stems across the board. And it happens many times with our leadership. There was a time, Vice President, let me speak about abuse. When I think about some of our leaders, I could in my head, Mr. Vice President, that I seem to be the safest place for free speech around here. I could, in my head, Mr. Vice President, attribute cost overruns to certain leaders and during the country, our history, that equates to probably $250 million or more, just off the top of my head. Because of wasted funds. The same amount of money we would have had to borrow, it was around, how much it was? 206 million. I could go in my head and find 206 million. And I don't care whether it's PLPF for them, where some leaders or portfolios had actually abused or not accounted for. And that has happened in our history so much that if we were to go way back and look at the monies that we have wasted in our country, we realize that half our debt would not be debt, because the money that you waste is money borrowed, which you still got to pay back, and you don't get nothing to show for it. And that is a general point across the board. I'll give you an example of how things have been breached by persons who would have known better. When we go on Wolf Road right now, $30 million on behind Mr. Academy School. $30 million without even a lease. That is not in dispute. I was in the House when that was debated, and the response. $30 million. And guess what? We're talking about procedures and rules. Guess what? You didn't even have a lease agreement and blow $30 million on certain things. We just finished the BAMSI bill. We just finished we just finished the BAMSI bill, and that was $100 million cost overrun. What I'm simply saying,
Senator Raming has the floor.
What I'm simply saying today is that we need to stop the smoke and mirrors. The New Day government got a serious road ahead. And quite frankly, even the Prime Minister himself acknowledged, as it relates to this supplementary budget, that it includes the effects of the previous administration. That's common sense. No one talking to you, sir. Talking to the Vice President. That's common sense. Why? Because it was a transition from a budget that has already been established. They came in at a certain point. So it is fair to say, using the colloquialism, the brave wave rode the menace wave and is now building up to its own wave that I think we will see more strongly when the midterm budget is actually presented, which will really show the new budget, which will be presented, which will really show hands-on, this is what we're doing. This is nothing new. I said this in the House Assembly myself, that the first year in, the budget that the F&M government had was not its wholehearted budget, meaning the budget had already been passed by the PLP. Only thing you could do was tweak it a little bit, but you got to run with it. But that first budget is really yours. So quite frankly, it is not rude and fair or unreasonable that whatever momentum that is coming here, it's just logical. It's like a skateboard fetching and the fella jump onto it and he's keeping it moving until such time as he is able to anchor down and now put his own independent budget in place.
Senator Raming, do you need a few more minutes?
No, we're wrapping up on this point. So what I want us to appreciate is that a lot of the things that are being said out there, we need to look beyond the riffraff. We need to look beyond the flam. Right now, as a country, we need substantive things and hard knocks. We need persons who could actually go ahead, put their hand to the plow and get it done. It's okay to draw a reference, but when you draw a reference, brother, you got to keep pushing because we cannot afford for the PLP to fail no matter how much you want the F&M to come in. We got to understand this because if the Honorable Prime Minister jacks up, guess who's jacked up? We are jacked up. And we need to get to that as a mature people. And I'm concerned because, and my final point is, I am concerned, and I'm speaking to everyone in current leadership, that you must hold each other accountable. Because some of the decisions that I would have seen made in this country would have destroyed this country. Would have destroyed this country. I remember even as related to oil drilling. The standard rate is 60% for the country. We had a contract in place for 12%. That reminds me of what the place called. I'm just going to give the name rather quickly. Yes, it is. I can show you. I did the research on it. You know, and so in any event, we need to ensure that whatever we do as a nation, I'm closing. I'm closing. We need to ensure senators of the opposite side, government of the opposite side, especially because we are in crunch time, but it should have been all the time. Make sure we get bang for the buck. Whatever you got to do privately, because we know there's decency and order, remind them we need bang for the buck. We don't need the flamboyance. We need actionable results. And if your success results in your win, guess what? We all win. We don't need the cost overrun and the wastage that we've been having before. So with that, Mr. Vice President, I take my seat and thank you all for the time.
As many...
Oh, let me table this. I'll table this, all right?
As many...
Oh man, you're born alone. Hey,
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Quinton Lightbourne.
Vice President.
Today's the 18th.
It's on.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, thank you very much. I rise this afternoon in these honorable chambers with a grateful heart to the Almighty God and the privilege to stand here once again. I stand here this afternoon to debate the midterm budget, which speaks about public revenue, public debt, and the government's new approach to managing our economy. But I would say this as I proceed. I want us to remember that we are in the upper house, and we must have civil debates and discourse.
Oh, come on.
And my grandmother told me this as a young child, Quentin, don't go down the downward road. And I will not go down the downward road.
Love grabbing.
Mr. Vice President, we are not out of the woods yet in regards to COVID-19, but our economy is slowly getting back to levels we haven't seen since the start of the pandemic. The Davis administration has created fertile ground for economic recovery by ensuring that the economy is open and businesses are allowed to operate unimpeded by curfews and lockdowns. This isn't a rally speech, but a real speech about real campaign promises fulfilled. In 6 months, we've conducted tens of thousands of free COVID tests. We've distributed thousands of free medical grade masks, and we've ended the expensive health visa for Bahamians. And we've gotten our children back in school and employees back to work. But I am here not only to speak about these accomplishments, but to speak about the fiscal accomplishments as well. The government has seen a revenue increase by $453 million, more than last year's revenue. In the span of 6 short months, the ratio of debt to GDP has fell from 100.2 to 96.4%, which is a good sign for any economy. An ideal debt to GDP ratio is 75%, but with continued prudence and economic growth, we will get there. These accomplishments so far were not all done by increasing taxes on the backs of the Bahamian people, but they were done by efficient collections, not restricting our economy, and innovative financial arrangements like the Goldman Sachs Repurchase Agreement. I want to explain first and foremost what is a repurchase agreement for everyone out there to understand. Totally. You know, a repurchase agreement is an instrument for raising short-term funds with a repurchase agreement to repurchase it from the buyer at an agreed price, not at a fluctuating price or rate. Under the agreement with Goldman Sachs, security assets are traded for cash with an obligation to purchase the securities back in 2 years' time with the fixed interest rate on this repo at 2.4%. We negotiated a rate of 2.4%, but the previous administration had a rate of what? 8.95%. It doesn't take a mathematician to know that we can see which government was able to negotiate a better deal for the Bahamian people. In the midst of our economic recovery, this government, again, in 6 short months, signed the heads of agreement for $200 million with Cotton Bay Holdings in South Lutra to create 500 jobs. And Mr. Vice President, we've also reopened the straw market after nearly 20 months of being closed. 6 months, within 6 months. For those watching, I would like to make it clear that this midterm budget runs from July 2021 to December 2021. But the previous administration was not re-elected on September 16, 2021. So this means that the reporting period covers some of their time in office as well. Right, Senator Henfield? The side opposite spoke a lot about transparency. But during the pandemic, it appears that transparency was out of the window. The procurement rules were not followed by them. And not one member at the time stood up on behalf of the government and said what they were doing was wrong. Members on the side opposite in this chamber now appear to be advocates for good governance, but was quiet as a mouse in government. I honestly don't understand how delusional some members can be in here by trying to defend their failed tenure in government. What was the government's legacy?
Senators, you're interrupting.
What was the government's last legacy, I say? Nothing. A person associated with their party, Senator Raming, was making $7,000 a month and given $53 million to run the National Food Security Task Force. For me, the real issue is the absence of records on that $53 million. No one was required to provide reports, and there was no standardized reporting of results. And two entities, which received collectively over $15 million, have refused to respond to queries as to how the money was used. It was recently also brought to light that 9% of the $53 million was spent on administration fees. That would be about $4.7 million. Mr. Vice President, that was reckless management of the Bahamians' people's money. During their 4.5 years, billions were borrowed, yet not one single new major road project, not one single school, clinic, not even a house constructed or built. But they borrowed billions of dollars. Mr. Vice President, I take this role as a senator very serious. And every time I'm asked to speak in these honorable chambers, I am well researched and prepared. I don't stand up here and wing it. I don't come in here and talk old-time story. I pass the days where I sit on my grandfather lap and he tell me how it was back in the day. The Bahamian people want and require more from our parliamentarians. If you're not ready and able to be that place or be like that in this place, this is not for you. This generation's want change, and I want it too. There are still many Bahamian families struggling. 11,000 households, to be exact, are still receiving food assistance. And we know that there's more in need. I stand there this afternoon and would like to tell them all that we are still working on your behalf. We will continue to bring forward policies which are purposely and compassionate for Bahamians. The Prime Minister said, and I quote, "We've already done things which others said were impossible, and we only getting started." There are many exciting developments on the horizon, especially at the Bahamas Development Bank. I am proud to announce in this chamber this afternoon that on April 1st, 2022, the bank will launch a small business grant program for family islanders for a total of $100,000. $100,000. This will allow family islanders, all family islanders, with an opportunity to get some much needed help and money to rebound and start their businesses. We have started the much needed revamping of the public pension plan, and we will further developments for our country. A team from the Bahamas Development Bank recently visited Abaco to conduct a town hall meeting because we want to help the people of Abaco. We want the best for them. We are not talking this. We are doing this. Well, I would say this, Senator Rahman. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22.
I need your help.
Let me quote some scripture.
No, it's positive. It's positive. Yeah.
Senator Raming.
For a clarification, when you said the $100,000, things like this capture people's minds, and things like this is very positive. I like that. Could you explain whether it's $100,000 per person or is $100,000 for the whole thing? Just take a minute, because people really need to hear stuff like that.
Really.
Don't rush past that.
Come on, I appreciate that. So the $100,000 Bahamas Development Bank has started a Family Island initiative where we've set aside and allocated $100,000 in total to be dispersed throughout all Family Islanders we're looking at a total of $25,000 to $3,000 each per person. And so that's how we're going to spread it. There's the variables that we have. We have a grading mechanism. So it'll be evenly dispersed. So Abaco won't get all. We'll make sure that people in the South will be able to benefit as well. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
But no problem. But I would say this. Proverbs, and as I wrap up, like I say, I don't need much time. Like, I don't need much time to say the truth. The truth will set you free. And Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22 said, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. When it's all said and done, the Bahamian people will see that we are working for them because we are servant leaders for the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you very much.
As many
Thank you, sir.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Darren Henfield.
Thank you, Mr. Vice. I don't know if the Honorable Senator was calling us sinners or what. Was calling us sinners or what? Yeah, but he did admit that we left some wealth in place for him to inherit. That's the closest I've heard come to that admission. By the side opposite, I got it, Maxine. Thank you so much. Now, I didn't want to begin like this, but let me just begin like this because I really wanted to congratulate the Minister of Works, and I'll get to that for what I think is very mature politics by inviting us to go to the opening of the bridge in Albuquerque. You just stood there and said we didn't do anything. So what I'm going to do is. You did that in 6 months. You build a bridge. You build a bridge in 6 months.
You build
a bridge in 6 months in North Albuquerque, right? So let me just say to you, let me just name off some of the projects that were completed on our watch. Yeah, we do. Leave me alone now. Leave me alone. I didn't bother you, but for the times when you really, yeah. And I'm being cordial, right, Minister? And so here are some of the things that we did. I heard someone in the other place said that in local government they did the Dawn Road. The Dawn Road was destroyed 20 years ago. I was in Albuquerque for the signing of the contract, which amounted to about $3.3 million. It was done by Moscow to do the Dawn Road. Local government in its capacity as an administration, they don't have that kind of money. They don't have the kind of money to complete the Dawn Road. And so the Dawn Road, what happened 20 years ago in Hurricane, I can't remember which one it was. Was it Floyd? Broke Albuquerque in half, all right? Fractured the island, and we repaired that. That's one of the things that we did. And I just told you about the bridge connecting Little Albuquerque, aptly named Angel Fish Creek Bridge, because that area used to be swarming with angel fish one time ago. The bridge that we met there, Dorian, when we came to office, Dorian unceremoniously uprooted it. And I asked someone in Cooperstown on Saturday where that bridge is. They told me over in the creek where Dorian rested, right? And so now we have a bridge in North Albuquerque. And I want to commend Minister Sayers for his political maturity, and through him, the government of the Bahamas, the Prime Minister, for inviting us. The Honorable Desmond Bannister, the former Minister of Works, the Right Honorable Hubert Alexander Ingram, the perennial MP, and the delivery boy from North Albuquerque, and myself, and we were there along with he and Prime Minister Christie, Prime Minister Davis, and the two members of Parliament, and I thought that was a fantastic thing to do. And I think those are the type of things that we do. Some sow and some reap. We understand that, but that is a demonstration of the continuation of governance and the kind of things that we must work at doing instead of practicing all this divisive politics. No, I'm just talking. I'm not pointing at you. We did extensive highway repairs in North Albuquerque to eliminate. From I was a boy, you could stop me when my time finished, right? But let me take my time and do this. When I was a boy, every time you approached, and that's a long time ago, every time you approached the area was known as Stink Pond Road, you could smell the pond before you arrived. You know why? Because there was quarry filling the road, impacted the road, and it didn't allow the water to flow from north to south to cause there to be a decent flow. And so you had this stench that built up over time. We remediated that road. You know, when I was campaigning in 2017, I went to a funeral, and the priest, whilst in the pulpit, he said, Henfield, if you win, the first thing you do is you better fix that Stink Pond Road, because the road had been affected by the water coming up underneath and causing there to be ripples. And we had several accidents with bad outcomes on that road, and we completed that. I wouldn't tell you what we did with we tried to do with the shanty towns. You know that was a matter that had to go to court. And Andros, we built a new bridge at London Creek. These things you can go online and find, you know. Before you start up in here and say them things, you're a good man. You can do well. You have a bright future ahead of you. A very bright future ahead of you. Nobody, see, when you get up and you say things like that, you mislead the Parliament. Mislead you. I mean, for you, that's not a problem. I want to protect the young senator. Right? Roads in South Andros, gymnasium in South Andros. Right? We finished that when you started in South Andros. You all started that. And I invited people to everything that I did as Minister of Foreign Affairs. I invited the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister now. He didn't speak. And you know, but he was invited. He was there holding the ribbon right alongside me. And if you check, and he came also when we inaugurated the new airport that we were going to build up. Right? We tried to do that. And I think that's the way it ought to be. We complete. Let me just go to Elutra. Mailboat dock, Roxanne, road paving in Saudi Elutra, highway paving throughout Elutra, and then highway paving throughout Exuma. How you gonna say we ain't doing nothing, man? I want to come off this, you know. New Providence, multi-million-dollar refurbishment of West Bay Street and water mains. Paving of more than 100 roads such as Nassau Street, I ain't gonna list all of them. You drive on them. And I want to commend the minister as well, the Minister of Works, because I see some good work continuing in that regard through some areas that I drive through, right? New modern BPL engines, we bought them. You say we ain't doing nothing, man. And you know something? Huh? Black Point Roads developed plans for new airport and began construction. Barry Tarry Docks, Long Island, New Bridge, and New Newton Key began road paving and works. Monument Road developed plans for new airport and successfully tendered project. Spanish Wells even got a modern new bridge. You remember the bridge?
Point of order on that one. On a point of order.
You don't like the bridge? You don't like the bridge?
I was warning him not to go there.
Yeah.
I was warning him not to go there. That bridge sat in a container for 4.5 years in Spanish Wells, uninstalled because they couldn't come up with the funds to mobilize. They started to approach election. They had to hustle, try to get it up there, try to get it put in there. Only after it was destroyed by overloading it by somebody from Spanish Wells. But the point is, that bridge sat there for 4.5 years and was only replaced after it was destroyed for being overloaded. And that's the truth.
I believe you. But you didn't say that we didn't replace the bridge. So what's the point you're making? What's the point you're making? Whether or not it was sitting in a container, did we not replace the bridge? We replaced the bridge. I remember when the bridge collapsed. Right? And we moved expeditiously to try and get the bridge back in place. Right? Yeah, we did. I remember that. So to say that we didn't do anything, is misleading the House, misleading the Senate. I know you don't mean to do that.
Okay, can I rise on point of clarification? In my
The
contribution,
chair recognizes Senator Lightbourne.
okay, just a point of clarification. I wanted to make sure. I said in my contribution to the Senate that no major roadworks, clinics, schools, or homes were built. I just want to make that abundantly clear. Those are the infrastructural implementations that were not done by the previous administration. Now, if you can provide me with clinics, major road development, homes built, then we got a point.
All right, let me see if I could find some information to provide for you. All right, okay, to say, see, you can't tell me what is relevant when I'm on my feet there, right? You mean him? You mean him? So you want me to leave him? Don't answer my colleague? That's what you said? No, man. No, we ain't listening to you. We ain't studying you.
Especially this is generous concern.
No, we ain't studying. We spent a lot of money on repairs. I think I remember $9 million on Duran. I believe, we put up the Twin Towers. Y'all gonna redo that now, as you have the prerogative to do. There's a lot of stuff that we did. All right, and we did this. We did all that we did in 4.5 years under the most extreme conditions imaginable to man. I hear all the time people stand up in this place and you don't want me to speak to that, because you know the kind of people I call. You know the people I called home and what they were doing. They were making an impact. You know that. You know that. You know why they were placed where they were placed. You know that of all people. You know that. No, we didn't fire anybody. We dispel that all the time. Now, what you all are doing, we expect that governments would put people in place in senior managerial positions to help them meet their agenda and their policies. My God, the little man. How you gonna send home 60 people from urban renewal? Senator Russell. 60 people. 60 people who trying to, if the breadwinner lost, she's the only breadwinner in the house. Her husband ain't working, and you can send her home, man. You can't. We appreciate that. We appreciate it when you come to office, and you have people in place that are not fulfilling your agenda or not trying to help you achieve your policies. But to renew what? To renew what? I mean, a little contract for $12,000 a month for a single mother, or a woman who's the only breadwinner in our house, and we have to stop that kind of thing, man. We have to stop that kind of thing. Let me get back to the point I wanted to make. The point I wanted to make is this: I hear all of the kudos and back-patting for how well we're doing with COVID in 6 months. When COVID came ashore in the Bahamas in 2020, March, as I recall it, it may have been here before that, but the first cases were reported, I think, around about March, right? Yeah. COVID was called for a reason by scientists a novel coronavirus. It had not been yet known to man. The closest thing we came up with is that it was some form of a flu, right? And we didn't act any differently than anybody else in the world, We acted as the entire world did. Because we feared a dramatic spread of COVID throughout our country, we locked down. America locked down. Canada locked down. The UK locked down. Parts of Europe locked down. All over the Caribbean locked down. So to say we deliberately closed the Bahamas and suspended constitutional rights would be true. But we did that in order to protect the country. Other countries did it as well. Other countries said to people, you will not come out of your home, right? You will not come out of your home at this particular time. And so we used Article 29 in the Constitution, which is provided for that precise exact purpose. For that exact purpose. All right? And in the interim, we tried to build capacity. And so we introduced a wonderful vaccine program, right? We introduced a wonderful vaccine. We procured vaccines. We introduced a wonderful vaccine program, which enabled to put, which we were trying to do to get us in a fighting position, because we knew that our tertiary level institutions could not stand to be overrun. I don't expect that kind of nitpicking from you, man. I really don't expect that from you. You know what I mean? You know, you used to senior man. You used to senior man. And you paid them? You used to senior man. Right? And I ain't troubling you at all. Right? Let me tell you what some senior people in the international community said. And I particularly like the IMF Article 4 consultation on this point. And it's something I almost walk with, that I look at regularly. The IMF, when they came here to look at our books and to examine the operations of our government, the Article 4, of course, does that, to assess where we are economically, our fiscal policies, and see how they apply. You know what the executive summary says? It says the economic impact of COVID-19 on the Bahamas is unprecedented, right? The archipelago is just recovering from the devastation of Hurricane Dorian in the fall of 2019, when the pandemic led to a sudden stop in tourism, the main source of income and employment. The authorities mounted a rapid emergency response to support the economy and the vulnerable households. They put in place strict containment measures. So here it is, this international organization, the IMF, and this was issued on the 28th of January 2021. Here they are applauding the actions of the Bahamas government in response to COVID-19. Now, I'm not saying that we did everything perfect, but remember, Monday morning quarterbacking is easy, my brother. That's right. You know, I'm still wondering why they didn't give the ball for the fellow name who's doing the Campbell Soup commercials with his mother. Was Seattle, right? Why they didn't give the ball to Russell? Russell was a beast. Was it Russell? Lynch. Lynch was a beast. You 3 yards from the goal line, and you can decide to throw, and you got a beast like that on your tail. So sometimes, in retrospect, you recognize that you don't make all the right decisions. But you came into office at a time when it was good for you to loosen up the economy, to loosen up the strings on the economy, because you had most of your population, you had a good deal of your population vaccinated, who had not been vaccinated, probably attracted the COVID virus before and had some antiviral bodies in them. And so you're probably pretty near now to what they call herd immunity. And so free for all. And I also believe that it is best that Bahamians understand that unless they help the authorities to manage this pandemic, it's not going to go away. It's something that we have to continue to live with. And so some of the things we did in response was to introduce some measures. See, here we are now, right? With inflation rates at 40-year heights, right? The world is an economic meltdown almost. And that is being exacerbated by the unjust war that Vladimir Putin has inflicted on the people of the Ukraine. Vladimir Putin and Russia are major producers of oil, right? So that is going to impact, and we understand that the sanctions flowed from there. And so that is going to impact this issue that we had still hanging over from COVID, right? Where we had distribution chain issues, where we had supply chain problems and labor labor markets contracted because everybody was in their homes and couldn't come out. And so if you worked from home, but you weren't in a factory producing the things that the world needs for us to function. And so at one point we had ships lined up outside of ports that could not be unloaded. And that drove up the price of containers, right? And here we are now with a potential for more contraction in our economies because of this conflict in Ukraine. And we pray that it comes to an end, that people come to their senses. But we must do more than pray. sometimes. When we were inflicted with COVID and Dorian, we responded in a way, as was indicated by the IMF, to help those that were in distress, right? So we came up with a feeding program that is being assailed now, right? And let the investigations go on and let the chips fall where they may, my brother, right? Before we start imputing wrongdoing to people, to Bahamians who walk, let the investigation go on. We don't believe in corruption. I don't believe in corruption. We believe in transparency and accountability in our party. That's our mantra. And so we must be able to live by transparency and accountability if we believe in it. That's what we believe in. And you know what we did? We didn't just sit idly by when we came to office, because we had concerns about corruption. I mean, historically, the Bahamas has concerns about corruption. If you read the report by Archbishop Gomez after the watershed, I think it was the Watershed Commission of Inquiry into drug trafficking in the Bahamas, you will find in there, I don't want to quote him incorrectly, something along the lines that we are endemically corrupt as a people, from what he found. Corruption just pervades the Bahamian society, and we have to fix that. We have to fix that. As a people, we have to fix that. People come to expect that when you walk into a government agency that's supposed to provide a service, you give me something to help me with my lunch in order to get that service. I sent someone to immigration whilst we were in office. And the person I sent him to called me back and said, I was able to assist with this permit for a woman of the Green Turtle Key. And she slipped me some money. And I asked her, what was this for? And so she said, no, she said, no, I don't, you know who I'm talking about. You know exactly who I'm talking about. I won't tell, I'll tell you privately, right? Who the person is who said, no, I am here to provide a service. And until we get that mentality all across the Bahamas, here's what we did to try and attempt for this country to become more transparent and more accountable in its dealings with the financial affairs of this nation, right? We introduced and passed the historic Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2018, which paved the way to a 60% reduction in annual fiscal deficits before Dorian and the pandemic hit us. So it was our intention that every year, ensuing year, that we reduce our debt as much as we could in the budget by 60%. The deficit by 60%. That was our intention, right? These are some of the things that we did. We introduced and passed, we implemented the region's most progressive procurement reform through the Public Procurement Act of 2021. That will be unprecedented accountability and transparency to the provision of state government finances. Now I don't know. I hear the Attorney General in his seat saying that he's gonna revisit it. He's gonna make some amendments to it. Well, fine, do that. But for Christ's sake, enact it. Enact it so that we can stop. We can stop the appearance of things that go so much awry in government finances. Because we cause people to be called into account for the spending of the Bahamian people's money. That's all we were trying to do with this. And so if it's not perfect, fix it. Fix it so that we can get on with it. Other than that, we could go and follow. We could go and follow the 1975, the financial regulations, 1975, section 21 and 58, which causes us to have to account for what we're doing. And I hear them talk about tourism, the visa. And I looked at the executive summary and the audit report in the Ministry of Tourism, and I find it very interesting. I find it very interesting that we would have all of these imputations of impropriety. Somebody said to me that we're still in the same system. We're still using the same system. That's true. the same system with Canoe and CG Atlantic Insurance, the travel insurance business, Ports International. See, it wasn't just Canoe in this contract, you know. And it says it right here. If you don't want to make political mischief of these things, and bear in mind, I don't know what happened. I'm not defending what happened. But let me tell you what I know. What I know is that we were in a state of emergency, and we needed to come up very quickly with a means of getting tourists to the Bahamas safely. And so I find it interesting in the executive summary that the Bahamas, and it reads as follows, you know. We noted that the contracts of BTH program were not executed in accordance with the financial regulations 1975, section 2158, which states that all awards of contracts for supplies, works, and services required by the government in excess of $250,000. I hope you all ain't blaming us for these kind of things and issuing contracts without bid, as we had to do here because we were in a state of emergency, right? Yeah, we did, and that the law gave us the ability to do this, right? We didn't break any laws with emergency powers. We didn't break any law. We followed the Constitution, and we kept saying that, you know. And it's like trying to pick up water poured on the ground now to say to you that we had no more intentions of engaging the emergency powers. We had no more intention. Yeah, we say it. We had no more intention. I stood in the House of Assembly and said it because I was the one who was there, presented the last resolution to do it. Yeah, I understand that. Shall be made by the cabinet. No competitive bidding was pursued, and the said services commenced initially with only a verbal agreement. But at the end of the day, what the Auditor General says is that, you know, I understand. You were in a state of emergency, and you acted in the way that you acted to procure the ability to attract these visas. Now, well, he's my friend. I would never want to do that to him, and so that is not my intention at all. What he said is that we should have followed the law, but they understand that we have to move, right? In my words. Now here is what, based on the procurement legislation, we enacted that. We enacted a full suite of legislation to enable transparency, right? And here's what an economist from Trinidad, I don't believe you all like her too much, Mala Dukaran, right? June 2021. Here's what she posits. Concerning the suite of legislation that we introduced, right? And I quote her: I believe that the commitments to fiscal responsibility articulated in this budget, and that she was talking about the last budget that we did, demonstrated by the administration, is commendable and unique. I am not aware of any independent country in the Caribbean which has legislated and implemented any such fiscal responsibility framework, fiscal rules, without the commitment to do so under an IMF-supported program. Now, you know, you and I know some of our friends under the IMF, they have to come up with certain things. Here's what I found in the, y'all don't like us to look at the papers, but if the papers speak factually to a report issued by the State Department, I don't see how we can impugn it, right? So this is the headline of this. Yeah, because it's in the report. I didn't have time to go and get the whole report. Yeah. So this is under the headline: U.S. government urges Bahamas to enact transparency and accountability legislation. And this was but 2 weeks ago, right? I don't know. It says that the U.S. State Department report the International Narcotics Control Strategy report, right? You know, they give a report every year. It says that since 2017, the Bahamas has enacted, but not fully brought into force. Yeah, I have some issues with certain things, but this one I find useful here, right? Brought into force a range of laws to fight official corruption, right? It says draft laws presented by the prior administration to establish an ombudsman office and an anti-corruption agency.
I just want to rise on a point of order here.
Senator Pickstock?
Yes.
Remember, that's the reason why the first March.
Senator, the Honorable Darren Henfield seemed to be quoting, and I just want to ensure that he is adopting this as his own statement. Because it's a newspaper article, it seems. So if the good senator can just...
I thank you, Senator. But that's really the job of the chair, not yours, to ensure that I adopt what I adopt. And that brings me back to a very important point I wanted to make in this place.
Sorry, before we move on, are you adopting it as your own words?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Vice, I will adopt it as a State Department report. I have no issue with adopting that.
Okay. So
but before I do that, let me just point your attention that this whole place to page 29 in our rules, if this is the same rule book, the rules of procedure. This book of rules sets out 6 places where a senator, while on a speak, can be interrupted in this place. Right? 6. Not for you to say you object to something, not for you to say you want to put a question to me, not to say you want to make a point of clarification for me, because if you had not spoken and I didn't address anything you spoke about, there is no clarification to make. All right? And this rule, this is very simple when you look at clause 23. A senator may interrupt another senator.
That's irrelevant.
See, that's what they're talking about, man. You must protect us,
Continue.
You must protect us.
I said continue.
Go to page 29, section 23, clause 23. A senator may interrupt another senator who is speaking in the following circumstances only. This is an imperative. A, to call to the attention to a point of order, to a matter of privilege. That, I'm not impugning your character, right? So you have no matter to worry about. B, to call to attention to the absence of a quorum, right? We got a full quorum. I think our quorum is 9, right? C, to call to the attention the presence of strangers. D, to move the closure of a motion. E, to elucidate some matter raised in his speech. This is the point of clarification. Some matter raised in his speech, if the senator speaking gives way. And so if you have this rule, man, you ain't got to look out, Mr. Forbes. He taught me a lot of these rules. Yeah. And if I'm going wrong, I know you can tap me on my shoulder somehow and tell me, Darren, you're wrong.
He can tap you right now.
Yeah, I know you will. I know you will. He taught me a lot of these rules. All right? And so here E really speaks to the point of clarification that we often stand up with. E is to elucidate something that you said in your speech that some member is mischaracterizing. That's the only point of clarification you got to stand up on in here is when somebody mischaracterizes what you said in your speech. That's all it is. And so we have to, yes, sir?
May I also point you to Rule 31.6 where it says...
No, sir, not right now, sir. I beg you, indulgence. Let me
No, finish. I'm clarifying what you're saying because you're stating the rules incorrectly.
So
the senator may not speak more than once to a question before the Senate, except in explanation, elucidation, reply, or with leave of the Senate. So senators are allowed to explain and clarify. No, or with leave of the Senate, or.
All right. I sat in another place before, right? And I often heard people accuse the person sitting in the chair of descending into the arena. You sitting here as an impartial arbiter, not to engage in debates.
Have I?
Not, yeah. You mean just, even just now. That's the purpose in here. So we know the government will have its way, right? But the opposition must have its say. Just let us have our say.
Yeah, but
that's all we are.
Interpreting
the rules.
That's all we are.
The rules.
And finally, the point I want to make on this is F, to offer an explanation of some material part of his speech, which has been misunderstood. That's the one I was referring to earlier. I was wrong. I'm a big man. I can admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah, but you say that.
All right. No, I'm not. That was not my intent. What I'm saying.
Debate. He's not.
You can protect me. You can protect me from this member, or what? Or what we can do? Mr. Vice.
Senator Henfield has the floor.
You can please protect
Senator Henfield, you have the floor. You just say you. Senator Henfield, you have the floor. Continue.
Vigorously, you protect him. Vigorously. And so, draft laws presented by the prior administration to establish an ombudsman office, they just named it to an anti-corruption agency, focus on public corruption, had not yet been taken up in October by the new administration. right? And so we moved. Yeah. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Some things you sat on for a little while. We came and finished. We came and finished. So if you're serious about corruption, enact these laws, man, and follow them. And follow them. I hope you all ain't giving out no contracts outside of the four corners of the procurement law. You know, I hope you all ain't, because that would be the same thing you impugning us for. That would be the same thing you raising hell to high heaven for. Over some contract that we give people under the emergency orders. So what is good for the goose must be good for the gander, my brother. Let's lead by example if you want to do that. And you know, I believe I wrote down what I heard the economic minister say, my friend, a gentleman and a scholar. And we could learn so much from him in this place. In this place when we stand up. You know what I witnessed on Friday? I witnessed 3 prime ministers of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. From different parties, right? 2 from the PLP, 1 from the FNM. I don't know. I don't know. That's a matter for him. And the Minister of Works sitting, current, and the former Minister of Works, myself, the rejected MP, and two other MPs from Abaco, my homeboys. Me, I lost. I lost, right? I was being the balance and found wanting. No, that's okay. That's okay. And at some point, if you be in this business long enough, you lose. That's a part of the game. That's a part of the game. No, you the squid before you lose. You the squid before you lose. You smarter than the rest of us. you smarter than the rest of us. And here is the response. Here is the response that I heard from my brother, the minister, who I respect highly and hold in very high esteem. Minister Halkidas, as he spoke to inflation, right? He said that what we are going to do in the end of it, we recognize that we have inflation, that prices are soaring. I was in Abaco this weekend, as I said, and gas is $6 a gallon. Gas is more than $6 a gallon at the pump. And now we can't, in Abaco, I just got a message from the President of the Chamber of Commerce, hope you don't mind me saying this, Ken Hutton, saying that we don't understand what the regulations on the search order is going to be. Because we've heard now that at the end of March, those who haven't applied for search as yet, the exemptions under the emergency orders, right? That they're able to bring in their building supplies, their home appliances, and the rest of it. Same thing for you all in Grand Bahama, you know. Loose good, no hard tie, good feel. I can speak for you all, you know. Some things I can speak for myself, I can speak for you all, right? And there's uncertainty as to whether or not this will continue beyond December. But from what I saw, it is unlikely that it will, if the present position maintains. Now that's not good for Abaco. That's not good for Abaco because Abaco needs at least 3 years to catch itself, to be returned to the position where it was. And we put more. Now y'all may get a little extra for me for this, right? But I can say it anyhow. We put more in the public treasury than Grand Bahama, you know. Then we say what? Well, but more is more, man. You don't understand more? More is more. All right? Abaco has always been, I remember as a little boy walking behind Bumpy Watkins and a couple of fellas with the Abaco independence movement. I was probably about 9. But they had lots of cotton candy and good stuff. And so I followed them as they stamped in the road. Abaco wanted to be independent because Abaco always felt fundamentally that governments perennially do not return to the island what we put in the public treasury, right? All we asking the government to do is to leave us alone for about 3 years so that we could rebuild our economy, right? And be able to contribute, and to be able to contribute again, as we once did, to the Bahamian economy in spades. That's all we're asking for. And if you do that, you know what will happen? I believe this will happen. And I've always said this. I believe that we can come right into a construction boom in Abaco. I can let Grand Bahama speak for itself, right? I believe we can come into a construction boom if you get all people be able to get duty free and bring in their building supplies, bring in the things that they need. We can have people from all over the Bahamas coming to Albuquerque to work. That's why we have so much migrants in Albuquerque working, because our economy is always very sharp. Now, here's what the minister said, my good friend. He said, we're going to look at price gouging. Well, since E.J. Bo gone, nobody's looking at no price gouging seriously, man. Huh? And that's heavy, heavy work. And so, man, already? No, and so I say all that to say this. The government of the Bahamas, I have 2 minutes, right? Can I get 5, please? Thank you. That's all I need. I say all that to say this. The government of the Bahamas must not sit on its hands, right? And allow the Bahamian people to be overcome by the vicissitudes of life that we see coming out of inflation, that we see coming out of a war, or an unjust war in Ukraine. But we must respond. Other countries in the region have responded. They've done things. I know. They've done things to cap VAT on gas, right? I hear you all talking about, you could say that when you get up. I hear you all talk, they've done things to cap VAT on freight. They've done a lot of stuff. People have gone actually the opposite direction of us and with breadbasket items. They actually took it off, right? They actually took it off. And I said this before, if you want to capture the mischief of big companies in the Bahamas getting away, big restaurants and hotels getting away with the VAT reduction on the breadbasket, let's figure out a way to do that without putting the 10% back on the medicines, man. Without putting the 10% back on the baby food and the women, the female products and stuff like that. We could be more creative than that. We have to find a way of assisting our people in challenging and trying times. Right? That's what good governments do. We respond to it, and we don't have time to wait. I love the program and the blueprint for change, and I heard it in the speech from the throne. Programs to impact the lives of disaffected youth in our country. We can't have 8, he gave me 2 more minutes, he gave me 5. So I'm on that 3 now, right? I'm on that 3 now. So we can't wait for you to come in June and tell us what you can do with these young people. They're wreaking havoc on our streets. In our streets. I looked at that, man. That's some good things in that you'll just parrot. Good stuff in that. And I wish you could do them, right? We can't wait for June. We can't wait for June for you to implement these programs, National Service for Young People, to have them working with NGOs and after disasters, to give them trades. These are good things, and you must do them now before something else intervenes. We had some good minds, some good things to do, But then came Dorian, and then came COVID, right? And we had to adjust ourselves, despite the moans and the groans around this table. We had to adjust. Yeah, you could walk and chew gum at the same time too by implementing some of these good programs to take these young men off the street from slaughtering each other. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Don't wait to do that. And stop taking money from the police. They need all the money that they can get. Stop taking money from education. They need all the money they can get. Stop taking money from youth. They need all the money they can get. Don't. If anything, let's give them more money. And with that, God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, land that I love. And I pray God continues to keep us. I thank you, Mr. Vice President, for your indulgence.
As many... The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Randy Roll.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. I promise to be extremely brief. Certainly, I know it's late in the hour, and then Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder will wrap up. Mr. Vice President, I would wish to, first of all, say good afternoon to my fellow senators, and a special hello to Ms. Stewart down there in 8 Mile Rock, Grand Bahama. Got an opportunity to see her last evening in Grand Bahama, and so, Stewart, trust you well. This afternoon, as I stand to offer my remarks on this mid-year budget, I feel a renowned sense of optimism about the future of our beloved country. It is an optimism that comes from seeing how much has been accomplished within a short 6-month period through the Davis-Cooper administration. In coming to office, the Davis administration in this new day hastened to implement the COVID action plan of our blueprint for change. As a result, the spread of COVID has been curbed. Our country has returned to normalcy in all areas, and business is operating in full throttle. I am particularly pleased to see our students back in the classroom during the pandemic. Many were disenfranchised in their education, and some have fallen woefully behind. We fully expect the measures will be put in place to assist our students to quickly recuperate any grounds they may have lost during the pandemic. Mr. Vice President, I take this opportunity to insert a quick word on my government's plan for education reform. Among our educational reform initiatives is the plan to strengthen the technical education program of our schools. So by the last 3 years of high school, students are appropriately placed in programs suited to their aptitudes and talents. We must bear in mind that as we grow our economy, we will need skilled laborers in diverse areas. Professionals in technical areas are just as valuable to our economy as those white-collar jobs. Mr. Vice President, I feel a re-energized optimism on the outlook for our country because already this New Day government has moved into high gear to execute its overarching mandate to make life better for all Bahamians. Let us look at the term better. The concept of better, and not the better that some of you guys knew in '92. Better as striving for more positive circumstances is universally embraced by all human beings. We are all seeking better. Better opportunities to develop our human potential. Better standards of living. Better quality of life. Better prospects for our children so that young Bahamian adults can find right here with the shores of our beautiful country the opportunities they seek to upgrade their lot in life. It saddens my heart to hear of so many of our young Bahamians finding themselves constrained to migrate elsewhere for a better life. Mr. Vice President, every endeavor undertaken by this New Day government is designed by the vision to make life better for the average Bahamian. Last week, in his contribution to the midterm budget, DPM Cooper shared the wonderful plans in the works for the redevelopment of Port of Nassau and the revitalization of downtown Nassau. If you listen to him carefully, you would have heard the emphasis he gave to the creation of opportunities for more local Bahamians to gain a stake in the economic development that is coming to our city's center. He spoke about the government's plan to establish business incubation centers, East Bay Street, with up-to-date modern shared office spaces. He also foreshadowed the establishment of a high-end, authentically Bahamian marketplace east of Bay Street and made an appeal for Bahamian entrepreneurs, property owners, and new investors to take advantage of downtown development. Mr. Vice President, Bahamians are some of the most creative, innovative people in the planet. I take this opportunity to reiterate Deputy Prime Minister Cooper's appeal to local entrepreneurs. To the budding entrepreneur who has been mulling over a business concept for some time, now is the time to step forward to bring your dreams to market. This administration has already started the process of expanding the resources to assist entrepreneurs to carve out a place for themselves in our growing economy. the Small Business Development Center, the Tourism Development Center, Bahamas Investment Authority, all agencies are being restructured to make it easier for entrepreneurs to access capital and technical assistance. This is indeed a new day for the Bahamian entrepreneur. Mr. Vice President, investment, both direct foreign investment and local investments, are critical to the economy recovery of our nation. When DPM Cooper took his post as the Minister of Tourism and Aviation, one of Prime Minister's first actions was to bring the investment portfolio within the Ministry of Tourism. I happen to have the pleasure to serve as Global Relations Consultant in the Ministry of Tourism, Investments, and Aviation. My responsibilities include identifying investment opportunities and cultivating partnerships, all towards the economic growth of our nation. A priority of my portfolio is to facilitate the positioning of the Bahamas Tourist Office and Bahamas Consulate Office embassies overseas to play a greater role as a liaison, the first point of contact to foreign investors who have an interest in doing business in the Bahamas. We have planned a series of training sessions to educate selected staff in these offices on key essentials of investing in the Bahamas. Just a month ago, along with the Director of Investments, we held our first investment training session for staff at the Bahamas Tourist Office in the consulate in Florida. Mr. Vice President, in his contribution last week, DPM Cooper projected that the goal of this administration is to double pre-pandemic visitor arrival numbers within 5 years. Vice President, I can assure you that this is not wishful thinking. Beginning from day one of coming to office, the government has begun to lay down the framework for economic expansion. In Nassau, the continuing redevelopment of the Port of Nassau will reform the port and city of Nassau into one of the most vibrant port cities in the region. Across our archipelago, new airports will be constructed upon last 6 months. Listen to this now. Across the archipelago, new airports will be constructed in Exuma, North Eleuthera, Long Island, Grand Bahama, and yes, New Bight Island. This time around, real economic prosperity will make its way to our family islands. It's happening already in Exuma, Abaco, San Salvador, and other islands. Mr. Vice President, on the subject of Grand Bahama, let's be candid. Successive governments have failed to reignite Grand Bahama's economic engine. I won't elaborate on the reason, but what I am proud to say is that finally prosperity is in sight for Grand Bahama. Many of you would have had the opportunity to listen to DPM's Cooper pre-recorded address to Grand Bahama's business outlook. He outlined development after development taking place in real time in Grand Bahama. Proposals for Grand Bahama International Airports are being accepted with state-of-the-art redevelopment imminent. Bids have been invited for the redevelopment of the Grand Bahama Lucayan Resort. And as a matter of fact, just this morning, I was in Grand Bahama with the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for Grand Bahama as they shortlist the number of potential investors to take over that hotel. Work is starting. Carnival Cruise Ports, the industrial sector of Freeport is thriving with the container port, the shipyard, Farmer Chem Technologies, and other businesses. The South Riding Point Terminal is making its impact felt on Grand Bahama's economy. Under this New Day government, Grand Bahama is finally on the move. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, in closing, I invite our citizens to continue to pay close attention to the daily news. Every day in the newspaper,
on the radio and in television newscasts, you will be informed of dynamic developments taking place in every sector of our economy. I also wish to congratulate the Minister of Transport and Housing, as just now, even in Family Islands, in Abaco, in Eleuthera, and all throughout the Bahamas, her and her team are working to make sure that we allow for affordable housing for Bahamians throughout the Bahamas. These are all indicators. These are all indicators of this New Day government at work. I pray God's continuous blessings on the people of our beloved Bahamas. Thank you.
As many the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pindo.
Mr. Vice President, if I may, I intend on giving my contribution. And at the end of my contribution, I'm happy to wrap up the debate with the consent of everybody. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Good afternoon, Mr. Vice President. Today, I rise to support the midterm budget presentation. I must say the state of the country is good. It's hard to imagine in just 6 months ago, we were still under a curfew, businesses were restricted, restaurant and entertainment facilities could not open at night, and the economic state of the country was poor. Today, we find ourselves with the lowest COVID positivity rate since the pandemic began, no curfews, businesses open and thriving, our tourism industry full steam ahead, and Bahamians earning a reliable income for the first time in over 2 years. Mr. Vice President, this is because of clear, concise, and responsible action of this PLP government, which would include the ending of the emergency orders, the ending of curfews, tens of thousands of free COVID tests that the other side said we could not do, tens of thousands of free medical grade masks distributed amongst our communities, end of the travel visa for Bahamians. We hired nurses and we paid nurses. We allowed businesses to reopen and we allowed our children to go back to school. Mr. Vice President, it certainly is a new day in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The debate today is demonstrable proof of evidence of the PLP's approach to exercise political integrity and the follow-through on the promises made to the Bahamian people during the campaign and promise of a new day. The results of our hard work immediately on coming to office is crystal clear. Today is a much different day than 6 months ago. In the debate on the supplementary budget, I spoke to several initiatives in which the Office of the Attorney General looked to achieve during the remaining part of this 2021-2022 fiscal year and beyond. And Mr. Vice President, 6 months into our administration, I think it appropriate to update the Bahamian people on our progress at the Office of the Attorney General. A report card, if you may. I had advised in this place at the time of the supplementary budget that the focus of capital expenditure for the remaining of the fiscal year will primarily be on the upgrade and move of the Registrar General's Department, as well as the Freedom of Information Unit. As we know, both of these institutions contribute greatly to the open and transparent functions of our government and towards the ease of doing business and the social activities within our country. If you would recall, I advised that both the Registrar General Department and Freedom of Information Unit will move into purpose-renovated space in the Bahamas Financial Center, which will allow for a professional working environment with the space and accommodations to properly serve the public. Mr. Vice President, I am pleased to confirm that the renovation plans are being finalized by the Ministry of Works, and we look to go to tender for the renovations of the new RGD space and Freedom of Information Unit next month. We are on pace to move into our new facilities by the end of this calendar year, and still on pace to digitize the Registrar General's Department by the end of this calendar year. Mr. Vice President, I note in that other place, the member for St. Anne's tried to take credit on behalf of the former government for the progress at the Registrar General's Department. The former administration did nothing, and I repeat, nothing, to advance the move of the RGD, except to lease vacant space since last January, unutilized to date. It is this New Day administration that are fulfilling promises and executing on our plans. As we know, the functions of the RGD are imperative for the social welfare of our country. Managing marriages, births, deaths, and necessary registrations. And after today's meeting of the Committee for Registration of Land, they will be the responsible agency to put in place and manage land registration in this country. It is also the backbone of commercial delivery, being the department responsible for everything company and entity related. For too long, the functions of the RGD have been plagued by inadequate facilities, technology that doesn't function, service delivery issues, and a lack of organization and maintenance of orderly files and documentation. We look to finally change all of this by the end of this calendar year. Mr. Vice President, during the supplementary budget, I also advanced that the efficient administration of justice is not only a necessary obligation to the Bahamian people, but likewise will significantly contribute to the ease of doing business and international perception of a place people feel comfortable to do business. I discussed at that time of the consensus that has arisen that a series of specialty courts are required, not only for the proper administration of justice, but also in order to ensure the efficiency that we all deserve. This is a rather involved process, as suitable facilities need to be identified and retrofitted appropriately, and then the operational implementation must be rolled out. Mr. Vice President, I can confirm today that we have identified a location for a family court that will be supplemented by social services offices, mediation facilities, and other necessary complements to address the many complex aspects of family disputes. This will contribute significantly to the ongoing initiatives to modernize and reform the courts to extend access to justice to all in the Bahamas. Likewise, although we're still working through some of the logistics, we believe we have identified a suitable location for a specialty court to hear sexual offenses and domestic violence issues and cases. Now, this will take a little bit more time to work through and coordinate, given the sensitive nature of the matters to be heard. But needless to say, I think the Chief Justice has proposed a suitable location, and the government is committed to doing what is necessary to ensure that this court becomes functional and begins hearing sexual offenses and domestic violence matters in a setting that is private, that is confidential, and gives the discretion to such matters that are necessary and that are appropriate. Mr. Vice President, I also foreshadowed in prior debates the reform of the Department of Public Prosecutions. As many of you would know, the Director of Public Prosecutions has taken voluntary vacation leave, and there's an acting Director of Public Prosecutions. His name is Mr. Franklin Williams, Queen's Counsel. Many former prosecutors have returned to the offices of the DPP, and the internal structure has been reorganized to advance prosecutions in an efficient and an effective way. In fact, it appears that the reorganization and restructure of the DPP is delivering positive results already. We likewise look to expand the capacity of the Office of the Attorney General. You might have seen advertisements in the daily newspapers that the OAG is hiring and soliciting additional attorneys to assist and bolster its current team. The Attorney General's office, as the law firm of the government and to the government, is the largest and most prestigious law firm in the country, and I am proud to be its managing partner. The demand for timely legal advice and the defense of the government is enormous. We look to hire the best and the brightest to join our team to provide support for our civil litigation department, the Department of Public Prosecutions, and the Office of the Public Defender. I invite all interested attorneys to apply, even those sitting on this other side. The experience you will get at the Office of the Attorney General will be second to none. And I could promise you that, and I know my good colleague would endorse that. Somebody who has been trained and is a person he is and the professional he is because of the training at the Office of the Attorney General. These restructuring and new hiring exercises are all in the pursuit of a more effective and a more efficient administration of justice and to enhance the timely representation of government. In support of this goal and the constant pursuit to improve the access and administration of justice, we will soon bring new legislative amendments to Parliament to continue this charge. We look to advance the following shortly, which have already been submitted to the Bar Council for comment and distributed to its membership. We look to bring forward the Court Services Bill, the Child Protection Amendment Bill, the Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Bill, the Evidence Amendment Bill, the Juries Amendment Bill, and the Magistrates Amendment Bill. These amendments, pardon me? These amendments are designed to make access to the courts easier, to accelerate the hearing of matters in our judiciary, and the ability to advance remote hearings in the magistrates' courts throughout our family islands, all which will allow for the better administration of our courts and bringing justice to all. These amendments are instrumental to better the administration of justice and enhance access to justice to the courts by Bahamians throughout the Bahamas. Imagine you no longer have to send a magistrate to Marsh Harbor. Instead, I know you have one there. Instead, you have a remote hearing process where the magistrate can manage all cases on multiple islands in one day. We are in 2022. We've proven during COVID you can have remote trials successfully. In fact, the Court of Appeal would choose not to ever have to go back to in-person hearings. Listen, it's a progressive thing. Now you need an amendment to the law to properly bring it in a state of normalcy throughout the Bahamas, everywhere. We're working closely with the judiciary to see these reforms through in order to deliver justice for all in a timely and in an effective way. By advancing the above, there would be a new and modern family court with all related services in the same complex, a new specialized sexual offenses and domestic violence court, which would focus on dealing with such cases within a disposition cycle of 12 months. If this is combined with the passage of the 5 new bills dealing with criminal justice system and the court services bill, along with the relocation of the juvenile court to a more suitable location, the introduction of remote court hearings in the family islands, it would, and I would quote the Chief Justice in saying this, represent the largest and most extensive upgrade of the administration of justice in this country over the past 50 years. All of this was put together in 6 months. This would literally transform the court system in tandem with the initiatives that the Chief Justice has underway, which includes a new case management system and a new digitization project, a new electronic payment system, new civil procedure rules. All of these are bringing our court system, which has suffered through inefficiencies and barring many Bahamians to access to justice into the modern era. It is certainly a new day in the administration of justice in the Bahamas. We are a transparent and we are an effective government, one that practices good governance. Unfortunately, the same could not be said about the former administration. There has been much commentary in that other place and in the public domain about examples of poor governance practices, a lack of transparency by the former administration, and in certain instances, some rather shocking revelations. Mr. Vice President, it's not my intent to list a bunch of gotcha moments, as the leader of the opposition would want it to seem. But some of these matters and some admissions in that other place, admissions, are so materially non-compliant with the best practices that we should all be alarmed. For example, I find it completely astonishing that the member for St. Barnabas in that other place would find it perfectly acceptable to run an agency of the government without regard to proper corporate governance, without holding routine board meetings as mandated, and to not having clear frameworks for approvals of contracts, and especially the approval of extraordinary expenses. In the private sector, we all know that come from the private sector. This action, or should I say inaction, would be a breach of fiduciary duty, and there would be liability for such shortcomings. Also alarming was the disclosure by that same member that he, and not the board, authorized extraordinary payments in excess of those approved in the budget at the direction of, I quote, a higher authority. Now, I put it to you that the higher authority could only have been the then Prime Minister or Deputy Prime Minister, both of who he answered to. These are clear breaches of good governance and clear breaches of best practices. We also heard commentary about unbudgeted expenses of the government. We all know that matters come up in government, and I think this was discussed today by the other side. But the intentional lack of budgeting for expenses that are foreseen is financial negligence. Now, I don't intend on presenting a laundry list of these. I think they've already been placed in the public domain. But I do want to disclose those matters that are material to the Office of the Attorney General and advise the people of the Bahamas on how we, as the New Day government, are addressing these matters. Because to my colleague's point, governments are continuous, and you have to fix the problems that you meet. Upon coming to office, Mr. Vice President, it was discovered that the Office of the Attorney General had $17.7 million in expenses that were required to settle outstanding legal judgments and settlements. $17.7 million unbudgeted. This was shocking, especially given the actions underway to enforce these claims on the government and the interest that accrues and the costs that accrues and have been accruing unnecessarily year after year. In some instances, the cost and interest is larger than the award. It got to the point where contempt proceedings were threatened against the Minister of Finance for matters that were judgments many years prior. I want to thank my colleagues in Cabinet and the Financial Secretary for agreeing an extra budgetary payment plan to address the vexing issue of unbudgeted settlement and judgment expenses of the government. Today, we have received $2 million in supplementary funding and have a plan to receive additional periodic supplementary funding for the first time, working to pay off all civil judgments against the government. And it is my goal and I could only do it with the cooperation of the Financial Secretary and Ministry of Finance, to have the entire $17.7 million of unbudgeted settlements and costs to be wiped out by the time we enter into the next budget year. Furthermore, arrears owed to the Council for Legal Education for the Eugene DePuch Law School threatened the professional career of the graduating class of 2021. The Council of Legal Education refused to grant graduate certificates to these students because of the level of arrears that was owed to the council. Upon learning of this just days after the PLP won the election, in fact, the day I was sworn in, the Prime Minister authorized immediate supplemental funding of $1 million so the students can graduate and start their legal career. This, however, did not extinguish the arrears owed to the Council for Legal Education. At the time of the, that's not true. That's not true. We're the only country that is more than 13 months in arrears to have the Council for Legal Education withhold their certificates. The only country. Everybody else's graduating class was on their way. And ours are having empty envelopes handed to them that day. At the time of the emergency supplementary funding, the government owed for the education of Bahamian students over $2.8 million. I am pleased to advise that by the end of the fiscal year of the Eugene DePuch Law School, which is end of August, in this year 2022, that for the first time in 12 years, no arrears will be owed to the Council of Legal Education by the Eugene DePuch Law School. Yeah, all of us. But I fix negligence, and I fix mistakes, and I fix the lack of transparency, because that is what we're in this position to do. And it will get fixed. They're being fixed. These are just examples of a lack of transparency, poor corporate governance, and fiscal and budgetary mismanagement that we've experienced over the last 4.5 years. I can promise you that this New Day administration will govern differently. I can assure the Bahamian public that this New Day administration will govern differently. In conclusion, I don't want to take up a lot of time. I made the points I had to make, but I want to commend the Prime Minister. I want to commend my colleague, Senator Halkitis, in advancing the mandate given to us by the Bahamian people in an expedited manner. We have achieved in 6 months what most governments take 2 and 3 years to get to. Hit the ground running. Day one, as they say. These are important, in fact, vital steps to the proper administration of justice for the government and providing a stimulus for the turnaround of our economy and our country. It is clear that this PLP administration doesn't only talk, but we walk. And we walk briskly. I hope the opposition can keep up. We are delivering on our promises to the Bahamian people. That is our job. You make light of the blueprint for change. That is a book of our promises. And we are ticking them off one by one by one until that book will have all tick marks from the beginning to the end. We will continue to deliver. We are now the delivery boys and girls of this country. I am sure that I speak for my colleagues when I say we are all on board with the commitment to deliver a new day for the Bahamian people. And with that, Mr. Vice President, I support the midterm budget. And if I may, I'd like to just take a few minutes to wrap up and address some of the issues that were presented in today's debate. I note there was a lot of discussion about these forecasts that are seen in the fiscal strategy. And a lot of discussion, right, from the other side, almost all of them, about that reductions in budgets and the like. Well, I took it upon myself to actually read the report and to inquire on it. And for those who are interested, on table 11 of the report, lists an indication of what these forecasts are. And I would like to turn people's attention to the fiscal year 2020-2021. Because we know that the fiscal year 2021-2022 was not only an election budget, but it also reflects matters related to the recovery out of COVID. So the appropriate measurement to look at is the 2020-2021 budget compared to the 2022-2023 budget. That would be on page 37, table 11. You would note defense spending is up. Public order and safety spending would be up. You would also note social protection would be, education would be up. These are examples when you look at a more realistic, objective budgetary number of how we are looking to forecast, even though they are only forecasts. We had a discussion about state-owned enterprises. I think my colleague at the end had mentioned the lack of commitment to the state-owned enterprise reform. But I might remind her, during COVID, it was a decision of the former government to defer this reform of the state-owned enterprises through mid-2021. But in the budget exercise, they did not reflect the reductions in the budget that we're working under now. So I don't know if that was an error in their budget exercise or they decided to defer it even further. But as you said, we are working with the budget that we assume. We've had a lot of discussion about the repo and the repo transaction and funding. Needless to say, I don't have to dive into it. I've offered to table the documents, but I'll give a simple explanation of what happened to the Bahamian people. So if I was to borrow $100 from you, and you said, look, okay, I'll give you $100, but I want to take your car as security that's worth $120, right? However, when you pay me the $100 back, you can have your car back that's worth $120. Makes sense, right? That's all this was. A level of collateral given for a loan that will be returned when you repay the loan. Very simple to understand. Yeah, that's fine. We don't distinguish. No. That was the only point I was going to make. We heard Senator Ramming speak about the PLP government putting VAT in, and it was a PLP's tax, right? We did put VAT in. I sat in the cabinet. But needless to say, the Ministry of Finance from the F&M government had a full implementation report on VAT. This is something that just wasn't dreamt up coming to office. In fact, those who would have been around government would know that this was being studied and decided upon many, many years prior. Representations were made to the IMF. You would have seen it probably in prior Article 4 reports, alluding to value-added tax. So I think it's incorrect to say that this was a PLP or F&M decision. This was a long-standing tax reform that the government was considering for many years. You know that. You know that. You know that. You know that. And then lastly, my good colleague spoke about things that other countries in the region are doing. Lowering tax, I think you said, on fuel or gas. I think he's referencing Barbados, right? I mean, let's just be honest. He's referencing Barbados. But what he does not tell you is that Barbados put the largest tax increase on the back of their companies and their people. So they tax them and give a little carrot. Tax everybody, give a little carrot. Look, I know they're on the IMF program, but I know they're under the IMF program, and I don't intend to do that. I mean, I'll be honest. I know they're under the IMF program, but the fact of the matter is, you can't say they're reducing fuel to help the people when they're increasing taxes to tax the people. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. We reduce taxes. We reduce taxes. We are crystal clear crystal clear. Taxes went down under this New Day administration. Taxes across the board went down under this New Day administration. This is a wrap up.
The chair
recognizes.
Yeah, man. I could
Chair recognizes
and
Enfield.
I can take a point on the wrap up. That's the only time I have to take it until you put the question.
What is your point of order?
This member is misleading.
What is the misleading statement?
Let me get to it. Let me get to it. This member is misrepresenting what was said in this place. All right? What we said was this government put 10% back on bread basket items that were previously zero rated to assist low and middle income families. And the question is simply put, what are you doing now in the face of all of this inflation, in the face of all of these challenges with the war in Ukraine, to assist Bahamians? I mean, you say you're bringing a RISE program, but why stop the food program before you bring the RISE program? The RISE program, right? Because people still need to live until my friend is walking through gum at the same time.
No, listen, I understand your point.
Yeah, so what we're saying is, how are you going to respond to these rising challenges for Bahamians? That's what governments do.
No.
Don't come here talking, but what we did, we got fired. We want to hear what you can do. We want to hear.
So.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. We want to hear what you can do now to respond to the crisis that Bahamians face. That's the only point we wanted to make.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
Well, then that would have been a very short debate if that was the only point you wanted to make. The point of the matter is, it's a multifaceted approach. You lower the burden on Bahamians by reducing taxes. You open up the economy where Bahamians are making a paycheck for the first time consistently in 2 years in this country. In 2 years. This is a multifaceted approach. We are a country on the right track. People are at work. People are earning a living. There are many opportunities for Bahamians to make money and to have a career. But in that nature, Mr. Vice President, I appreciate the time you've given me. I appreciate you allowing me to debate and wrap up in the same communication. And I support the midterm budget.
It has been moved and seconded that the midterm budget report be adopted as laid. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The budget is adopted as laid. Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentations of petitions.
None.
Appointment of select committees.
None.
Reports of select committees.
None.
First reading of bills. Second reading and committal of bills.
None.
Committee of the whole. None. Third reading and passing of bills. None. Consideration of House amendments. None. Resolutions. Discharge of select committees.
None.
Notices for future meetings.
I renew all notices in the name of the government.
Orders for the clerk. Adjournment.
I move that we adjourn. Sine die.
Do I have a second? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do adjourn sine die. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Nay. Okay. Final adjournment.
I move for final adjournment of the Senate.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the Senate do now adjourn. As many are in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion is agreed. The Senate stands adjourned.